Lucas Hayes never expected to wake up to a crime scene in his own driveway. His eyes were still heavy with sleep when he stepped outside, expecting to start his morning with a fresh cup of coffee and the sight of his Storm Runner sitting where he had parked it. Instead, his heart nearly stopped. It was gone. The trailer was still there, bare and empty, like a carcass picked clean. The heavy-duty chains he had locked around it lay severed on the pavement, their thick steel links sliced through like butter. The realization hit him like a fist to the gut. Someone had stolen his boat. He took a shaky breath, his mind scrambling for logic. Who the hell does something like this? It wasn't just some rusty fishing boat. It was his, a high-performance speedboat worth more than some houses in the neighborhood. And it had vanished without a trace. Then a flicker of movement caught his eye. A piece of paper fluttered against his front door. He stepped forward and ripped it down, skimming the words. Notice of removal. Abandoned property. His stomach churned. What? His grip tightened on the paper as he read further. According to the Silver Palms Homeowners Association, his boat had been improperly stored and deemed abandoned, leading to its removal. His jaw clenched so hard it hurt. This wasn't a mistake. This was theft, legalized and sugar-coated in bureaucratic garbage. Lucas had only moved the Storm Runner to the driveway 2 weeks ago while making space in his private dock. It wasn't abandoned, it wasn't neglected. It was secured, cleaned, and locked down. And yet, they had come in the dead of night and taken it like a bunch of damn thieves. His fingers curled into fists. He knew the HOA was a nightmare. But this was war. Heart pounding, he yanked his phone from his pocket and dialed the number listed on the notice. It rang twice. Then a robotic voice answered. Thank you for calling Silver Palms Community Compliance. Please listen carefully, as our menu options have recently changed. He punched through the prompts impatiently, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. He didn't have time for this. Finally, a human voice. This is Dana, Community Compliance Office. Her tone was flat, uninterested, like she was reading off a script. Lucas inhaled deeply, forcing himself to stay calm. Losing his temper wouldn't help. Not yet. Yeah, hi, he said through clenched teeth. I just woke up to find my boat missing, and there's a notice on my door saying it was removed as abandoned property. I need to know where the hell it is. A pause. Then, with the enthusiasm of a DMV employee on her last hour of shift, Dana responded, Sir, if a vessel was removed under the abandoned property ordinance, it would have been relocated for disposal or auction. Can I have the address of the incident? Lucas felt his pulse hammering in his skull. It's not abandoned. It was locked in my driveway on private property. The address is 394 Ocean Breeze Lane. The sound of keys clicking filled the silence before she spoke again. I see the removal order here. Your vessel was flagged as abandoned due to noncompliance with Section 14B regarding unauthorized storage on residential lots. It was collected and processed at 3:27 a.m. this morning. Lucas froze. 3:27 a.m. They had come in the dead of night. Without warning. Without a fine. Without even knocking on his damn door. His stomach twisted with fury. This wasn't some random enforcement of HOA rules. Someone had deliberately set this up. His voice was ice cold now. Where is it? Dana sighed, as if this was all so inconvenient for her. If it was not immediately disposed of, it may have been transferred to a holding lot for auction or further processing. I can provide the address if you'd like to file a retrieval request. Retrieval request? They were talking about his property, like it was some stray dog picked up off the street. Yeah, give me the address. She read off a location, 20 miles south, in an old industrial lot near the shipping yards. Lucas knew that place. It was where confiscated vehicles and seized property went to die. If his boat had been taken there, it was already at risk of being stripped for parts or sold to the highest bidder. His breath came slow and sharp. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a setup. Lucas didn't know who was behind it yet, but he was damn sure about one thing. Whoever took his boat was about to regret it. Lucas's truck tore down the coastal highway, the city lights fading behind him as he sped toward the industrial lot. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel, his mind racing faster than the engine beneath him. He could feel the anger burning under his skin, a low, simmering rage that refused to settle. This wasn't just about his boat anymore. The HOA had done shady things before. Ridiculous fines, threats over mailbox colors, towing cars without warning. But this was theft. And it was planned. The real question was why. He turned onto a worn-out service road. The pavement cracked and littered with gravel. The industrial lot came into view, surrounded by towering chain-link fences topped with razor wire. The place was a graveyard for stolen and abandoned property. If his storm runner was still here, he'd be lucky. Lucas killed the headlights and coasted to a stop just outside the fence. The air smelled like oil, rust, and salt water. In the distance, old floodlights flickered over rows of impounded boats, half-stripped cars, and discarded shipping containers. He exhaled slowly, eyes scanning the area. 2 security guards near the entrance. Another man, heavy-set, leaning against a booth, smoking a cigarette. He needed a plan. Lucas reached into the glove compartment, pulling out a worn baseball cap and an old clipboard, his best shot at blending in. Act like you belong, and people don't ask questions. He stepped out of the truck, adjusting his cap low over his eyes. Keeping his pace calm, confident, he walked straight past the first guard, clipboard tucked under his arm. "Yo, buddy. Who you with?" One of them called out. Lucas didn't hesitate. He glanced over, barely slowing his stride. Inventory check. Dispatch wants an updated list before the morning loadout. The guard frowned, clearly caught off guard by the confidence in Lucas's voice. The key was never looking unsure, never giving them time to think. Dispatch, huh? The guard eyed him, then shrugged. Yeah, whatever. Just stay out of the loading zones. Boss don't like people messing around the new arrivals. New arrivals. Lucas's stomach clenched. That meant his boat might still be here. He moved deeper into the lot, weaving between rusted trailers and abandoned cars. The further he walked, the worse the place smelled, like rotting metal and diesel fumes. Then he saw it. Storm Runner. Sitting on a low-bed trailer under a dim floodlight, its black hull gleamed under a layer of dust. The twin engines were still intact, the body untouched, no sign of stripping or damage. That didn't make sense. If they were going to auction it off or dismantle it, why was it just sitting there? Then movement. Lucas ducked behind a stack of tires as 2 men emerged from a nearby warehouse. They weren't security. These guys moved with purpose. One of them, a tall man in a dark jacket, pulled out a phone. Yeah, it's still here. Transfer scheduled for tonight. No, not auction, private sale. Buyer wants it intact. Lucas's pulse spiked. Private sale? Buyer? This wasn't just an HOA mix-up. Someone had planned this. He needed to act. Fast. He moved quickly, sticking to the shadows as he made his way toward the trailer. If he could just get inside the boat, hotwire it, and gun it out of here. A hand grabbed his shoulder. Lucas spun on instinct, throwing an elbow. It connected with something solid, a grunt of pain. But before he could move, another set of hands shoved him hard against a metal crate. "The hell you doing sneaking around here?" a deep voice growled. Lucas gritted his teeth. 2 men. One was already rubbing his jaw where Lucas had hit him. The other was built like a linebacker, a knife glinting in his hand. This just went south. Fast. Lucas barely had time to react before the bigger guy slammed him against the crate again, his grip like a steel vise. The smaller one, still rubbing his jaw from Lucas's elbow, stepped closer, eyes burning with irritation. "You got balls sneaking around here, man," he sneered. "But you just made a big mistake." Lucas kept his breath steady, his mind calculating options. 2 guys. One armed. A tight space. No way to run, no way to talk his way out of this. "Look," he said, forcing his voice to stay even. "I think we both know this isn't an impound lot. Somebody pulled strings to get my boat here. I just want it back." The big guy snorted. "Yeah? Well, you ain't getting it." He shoved Lucas harder, his back scraping against the metal. The knife came up, just inches from his ribs. Lucas didn't wait. He exploded into motion, twisting hard against the grip holding him. His knee came up, slamming into the big guy's gut. The knife hand wavered, just enough for Lucas to wrench himself free. The smaller guy lunged, but Lucas was already moving. He grabbed a rusted crowbar from a pile of junk and swung. The impact cracked across the man's forearm. he yelped, stumbling back. The big guy roared, recovering fast, charging like a bull. Lucas barely dodged, rolling aside as the man crashed into the crate where he'd been pinned just seconds ago. The metal groaned under the force. Lucas didn't stick around. He turned and ran straight for the storm runner. The trailer was low, but Lucas vaulted onto it, his boots hitting the surface of his boat. Hard hammering, he dropped into the driver's seat, hands scrambling under the wheel. No keys. Of course. Behind him, angry voices shouted, "He's getting away!" Lucas's fingers worked fast. He'd wired boats before. He knew exactly what to do. He yanked open the access panel beneath the controls, twisting wires, his mind racing. Come on, come on. A gunshot rang out. The bullet pinged off the metal railing, inches from Lucas's hand. His head snapped up. The smaller guy, the one with the busted arm, had pulled a pistol. His hand was shaking, but the look in his eyes said he'd shoot again. Lucas didn't wait to find out. The storm runner roared to life. The engine's deep growl filled the air, and for a split second, everything else disappeared. The gun, the men, the warehouse. None of it mattered. He gripped the wheel, slammed the throttle, and the boat lurched forward. "Stop him," someone shouted. Lucas didn't care. The trailer screeched as the storm runner ripped free, metal groaning as the bolts snapped. The boat tilted off the trailer, crashing onto the ground with a sickening jolt. For a terrifying second, Lucas thought it might stall. Then, the engine roared, tires scraping against the concrete. The industrial lot erupted into chaos. Guards were running. The two men he fought were scrambling toward him. Another gunshot cracked through the air, missing his shoulder by inches. Lucas gritted his teeth and gunned the throttle harder. The storm runner shot forward, tires screeching as it raced toward the lot's open gate. A black SUV swerved into view, blocking the exit. Lucas's heart slammed against his ribs. He had 2 seconds to decide: go straight through the blockade or find another way out. Lucas had 2 seconds. 2 seconds to decide whether to slam straight through the black SUV blocking the exit or try something riskier. He chose risk. At the last possible moment, he jerked the wheel hard left, sending the storm runner into a sharp turn. The tires screeched, struggling for grip as the boat trailer hybrid barreled toward the loading ramp. This is insane, but it was his only shot. The gunmen were still scrambling to react, yelling at each other. A third shot rang out, too late. Lucas had already committed. The front wheels hit the ramp at full speed, bouncing the storm runner into the air. For a split second, everything slowed. Lucas saw the glint of metal containers stacked below, the ocean beyond the fence, the shocked faces of the men behind him. Then gravity took over. The boat slammed down hard, crashing through stacked crates before bouncing off a metal platform. The impact sent a shockwave through Lucas's spine, but the storm runner held together. Barely. He gritted his teeth, fighting the wheel as the boat skidded toward the edge of the dock. The water was just ahead. One shot. One chance. Lucas slammed the throttle forward. The storm runner roared, its twin engines unleashing a blast of power. The metal dock rattled beneath him. Then he hit open water. The moment the hull met the waves, Lucas felt it. The storm runner came alive. This was what it was built for. Salt water sprayed up as the speedboat carved through the dark waters, leaving the industrial lot behind. Lucas spared a quick glance back. The gunmen were already piling into their own boats. They were coming. His jaw clenched. He wasn't out yet. He adjusted course, pushing the storm runner to its limit. The engine screamed, slicing through the waves as he headed toward the narrow waterways leading to the city harbor. The pursuers were closing fast. 2 boats. Armed. Fast. Lucas's grip tightened on the throttle. He knew these waters. They didn't. That gave him one advantage. A spotlight snapped on behind him, blinding for a second before he veered into the shadows of the harbor structures. The first boat closed in hard, cutting the distance in half. Lucas counted the seconds. Then he made his move. With a sharp yank, he cut the throttle hard. The storm runner dipped, slowing just enough. The pursuing boat didn't react in time. It shot past him. Lucas didn't hesitate. He veered hard right, slamming the throttle forward again, sending his wake crashing into the enemy boat's side. The driver fought for control, but the impact sent the boat careening into the concrete pier. One down. The second boat was still coming. Lucas gritted his teeth. He was running out of options. Ahead, the harbor split, left toward the city, right toward the open ocean. He had to choose. Lucas's pulse hammered in his ears. The harbor split ahead, left toward the city, right toward the open ocean. Either way, he wasn't safe. His fingers tightened around the wheel. The second pursuit boat was still gaining. Its twin engines growled like a predator closing in, the spotlight sweeping across the dark waves, hunting him. Lucas made his choice. At the last second, he yanked the wheel hard right, straight toward open water. The storm runner lurched, engines roaring as it cut through the tide. Behind him, the enemy boat adjusted course immediately. They weren't letting him go. Lucas expected that. What they didn't expect was the trap. He knew these waters. They didn't. Just ahead, barely visible in the darkness, was a half-submerged sandbar, a hidden hazard that could turn any speeding boat into wreckage in seconds. Lucas kept his speed steady, acting like he didn't see it. Baiting them in, the second boat charged forward, getting closer, too close. Then Lucas made his move. At the last possible second, he cut left, missing the sandbar by inches. The enemy boat wasn't so lucky. Wham! The front hull slammed into the hidden sandbank at full speed. The boat launched into the air before coming down hard, the sound of metal crunching against rock. Engines sputtered, alarms blared, then silence. Lucas didn't look back. His chest heaved as he pushed the storm runner further out to sea. He had won. For now. The coastline blurred behind him as the waves carried him further from the city. No more pursuit. No more gunshots. But his gut told him this wasn't over. Lucas exhaled sharply, adjusting course. He couldn't go home. Not yet. Not until he figured out what the hell was really going on. The HOA didn't just steal boats in the middle of the night. Someone wanted the storm runner for a reason. And Lucas was going to find out why. But first, he needed answers. There was only one man who could help. Lucas pulled out his phone, dried salt crusting against the edges from the sea spray. He dialed the number from memory. The line rang twice before a voice answered. "You must be out of your damn mind, Lucas." A smirk tugged at his lips. He had called the right guy. "I need intel. Fast." A sign on the other end. "You just made a lot of people really angry. What the hell did you do?" Lucas glanced at the dark waters stretching ahead. "I took back what was mine. I took back what was mine." Lucas's own words echoed in his head as he gripped the wheel tighter, the storm runner carving through the restless waves. The Florida coastline had shrunk into a distant silhouette, replaced by open water and the rising tension in his chest. On the other end of the call, a long silence stretched before the voice spoke again. "Lucas, tell me you didn't just pull some crazy stunt." Lucas smirked, though there was no humor in it. "I think crazy might be an understatement." A tired sigh. "I swear, man, you attract trouble like it's your full-time job. Start talking." Lucas didn't waste time. He kept his voice even, but every word dripped with controlled fury as he recounted the night. The impound notice, the industrial lot, the fight, the gunshots, the insane escape. By the time he finished, the man on the other end let out a low whistle. "Damn. You're telling me your boat wasn't just impounded. It was marked for a private sale? That's what I heard." Lucas exhaled slowly. "Someone inside the HOA is working angles. But it's bigger than that. They wanted my boat for something specific. Something important." Another pause. Then, "Lucas, do you know what was in your boat before they took it?" Lucas frowned. "What are you talking about?" "It was just sitting in my driveway." "Yeah? Then explain this." A clicking sound came through the line, followed by the soft ping of an incoming message. Lucas pulled the phone from his ear and glanced at the screen. An image. His stomach dropped. It was his boat, the storm runner, captured from a grainy security camera angle. But this wasn't his driveway. This was a dock, a different dock, and there were two men loading something onto it. "This was taken 2 nights before your boat disappeared," his contact said. "Doesn't match your story, does it?" Lucas's grip on the wheel tightened until his knuckles turned white. That's impossible. I never moved it. Then somebody did. And whatever they put in your boat, the voice grew darker. Someone still wants it. A cold realization crept over Lucas's skin. This wasn't just about his boat anymore. It was about what was inside it. And if someone had gone through this much effort to take it back, they weren't done with him yet. The waves stretched dark and endless ahead of him. The storm runner was free for now. But Lucas wasn't. Lucas stared at the grainy image on his phone, his pulse pounding in his ears. 2 nights before his boat was stolen, someone had already touched it. That meant whoever was after him wasn't just stealing random property. They were retrieving something. Something hidden inside the storm runner. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself to think. What the hell could they have smuggled onto my boat? And more importantly, why didn't I notice? Lucas, you still there? His contact's voice snapped him back. Yeah, he muttered. His fingers flexed on the wheel. Where was this picture taken? Private marina, north side of the city. The kind of place where people don't ask questions. Lucas exhaled sharply. It was starting to make sense. He had left his boat docked at the marina a few nights ago, briefly, just for maintenance. He hadn't thought twice about it. But now, someone had used that opportunity. Someone had slipped something into his boat. Listen, man, his contact continued. If they planted something in your boat, that means they needed you to move it. They wanted it to blend in, slip past security. But now that you took the boat back, they think I have whatever they're looking for. Lucas finished. The realization sent a cold shiver down his spine. Exactly. And trust me, Lucas, these aren't the kind of people who take, I don't know, for an answer. Lucas cursed under his breath. His escape earlier tonight wasn't a win. It was a delay. They were still coming. And now, they weren't after just the boat. They were after him. Lucas needed answers. Fast. He cut the wheel, angling the storm runner toward the only person who might have them, Marcus Lyle. Lyle wasn't just another marina guy. He handled offshore shipments, private deals, things that didn't go through customs. If anyone had an idea of what had been slipped onto the storm runner, it was him. The problem? Lyle didn't help people for free. Lucas had burned bridges before. He'd have to convince Lyle that whatever was going on here was worth his time. The wind howled against his face as he pushed the throttle forward. The city lights loomed in the distance, but the tension in his gut only got heavier. Because deep down he knew whoever wanted that package wouldn't stop. They were still looking for him. And next time, they wouldn't just send men with guns. Lucas pushed the storm runner harder, slicing through the dark waters toward the city marina. Every second counted. He needed answers before the people chasing him caught up. The wind howled past his ears, the roar of the twin engines blending with the crash of waves. But his mind wasn't on the water, it was on Marcus Lyle. Lyle wasn't just some shady marina guy. He was the kind of man who knew where shipments disappeared, who was moving what, and who to avoid. If someone had used the storm runner to transport something valuable, Lyle would know about it. Lucas hoped he'd talk. The marina came into view, its docks stretching into the inky black water. Most boats were docked for the night, but Lyle's place always had lights on. A rundown boatyard with a rusting metal shack at its center, where quiet deals happened and no questions were asked. Lucas slowed the boat as he neared the dock, cutting the engine just enough to drift in. His hands flexed on the wheel, his jaw tight. He had to play this right. The second his boat touched the dock, a voice called out from the shadows. You better have a damn good reason for showing up here unannounced, Lucas. Lucas didn't flinch. He turned to see Marcus Lyle, standing near a workbench, watching him carefully. Lyle was in his 50s, his skin leathered by years of salt air and bad choices. He didn't deal in favors, only business. And Lucas had no doubt that if this meeting went south, Lyle wouldn't hesitate to call the wrong kind of people. Nice to see you too, Marcus, Lucas muttered, stepping off the boat. I need information. Lyle raised an eyebrow. And I need a bottle of whiskey and $1 million. We don't always get what we want. Lucas took a step closer, lowering his voice. Someone used my boat. Without my knowledge. They stashed something in it, and now they want it back. Lyle's smirk disappeared. His posture shifted, just slightly, but Lucas caught it. He knows something. I don't get involved in things that ain't my problem, Lyle said, crossing his arms. Lucas leaned in. That's the thing, Marcus. If someone's running shipments through boats at your marina, it is your problem. Because if I find out you had a hand in it, I'll make sure everyone knows. A tense silence stretched between them. Then Lyle sighed. Damn it, Lucas. He grabbed a rag from the bench, wiping the oil from his hands before finally looking him in the eye. I don't know exactly what was in your boat, he admitted. But I know who put it there. Lucas's heartbeat kicked up. Who? Lyle hesitated, then muttered. Asterisk, a guy named Rourke. Private buyer. Real discreet. Pays in cash, no paper trail. If your boat was involved, he's the one who set it up. Lucas had never heard the name before. Where do I find him? He asked. Lyle scoffed. That's the part you're not going to like. Lucas's stomach tightened. He's offshore. About 10 miles out. Big yacht. Armed security, the whole package. If you go knocking, you better be ready for a fight. Lucas exhaled slowly. This was getting worse by the second. He wasn't just dealing with some stolen property. He was stepping into something much, much bigger. Lucas exhaled slowly, trying to process what Lyle had just told him. You're serious? This guy Rourke is sitting on a damn yacht, miles offshore? Lyle smirked. You expected him to be hanging around a bar waiting for you? Lucas ran a hand through his hair. This wasn't just some petty thief stealing boats. This was high-level, organized. If Rourke was behind it, that meant there was serious money and serious muscle involved. How well protected is he? Lucas asked. Lyle sighed. You're not going to like the answer. Private security, all ex-military types. Fast boats, guns the works. This isn't some punk running scams. This is a man who doesn't like being bothered. Lucas's jaw tightened. That didn't change anything. He needed to know what Rourke had put in his boat and why he was willing to go to these lengths to get it back. Tell me where he docks his yacht, Lucas said, his voice firm. Lyle stared at him for a long moment. Damn it, Lucas. You don't know what you're walking into. I never do. Just tell me. Lyle rubbed his face before muttering. West of the reef line, about 10 miles out. He's anchored there most nights. But listen to me. He leaned in, his voice dropping. You go after him alone? You're not coming back. Lucas held his gaze. I'll take my chances. I'll let out a low chuckle. Yeah, you always do. Lucas turned toward his boat. He had everything he needed. Now it was time to act. As he stepped onto the dock, Lyle called out one last time. If you make it back, you owe me a bottle of whiskey. Lucas smirked. If I make it back, I'll buy you a whole damn case. He fired up the Storm Runner, the engine roaring as he pulled away from the dock. Next stop, Rourke's yacht. The wind whipped past his face as he pushed the throttle forward, carving through the dark waters. Every second brought him closer to the man with the answers. But in the back of his mind, one thought refused to leave. If Rourke had stolen his boat just to get something back, what the hell had he been transporting? And worse, what would Rourke do to keep it a secret? Lucas had a feeling he was about to find out. The Storm Runner sliced through the waves, the roar of its twin engines drowning out everything except Lucas's own heartbeat. 10 miles offshore. That's where Rourke was. And if Lyle was right, he wasn't just waiting around. He was armed, protected, and expecting trouble. Lucas was trouble. The wind whipped against his face. Salty mist sprang off the bow as he kept his eyes locked on the dark horizon. He had killed the navigation lights. No point announcing his arrival. The only glow came from the moon's pale reflection on the water, casting silver streaks across the restless sea. Then he saw it, a massive yacht, anchored just past the reef line, its sleek white hull gleaming even in the low light. Multi-level, at least 60 feet long, high-end tech, no expense spared. And security. Plenty of it. Lucas could barely make out the silhouettes of armed guards patrolling the deck, their movements sharp, disciplined. The kind of guys who weren't just for show, they were there to kill, if necessary. His stomach tightened. This wasn't just about stolen property anymore. This was something bigger. Much bigger. Lucas cut the engines, letting the boat drift in near silence as he approached from the starboard side. No sudden moves. No noise. Just like creeping up on a predator. Slow, controlled, invisible. He reached under his seat, pulling out a diving knife and a length of black rope. If he was getting onto that yacht, he wasn't taking the main entrance. He was climbing aboard the hard way. Keeping his movement steady, He guided the storm runner closer until it nudged gently against the hull of the yacht. No alarms. No movement. Perfect. Lucas coiled the rope, swung it up, and hooked it onto the railing above. He climbed fast, muscles straining as he pulled himself up the slick metal side. His boots found grip, his body moving on instinct. Years of dock work, boat maintenance, coverboarding techniques he never should have learned but did anyway. Within seconds, he was on the lower deck. Now the real game started. Lucas stayed low, moving in the shadows as he scanned the area. Footsteps approaching from the left. He pressed himself against the bulkhead, heart pounding. 2 guards. Armed. Focused. Dangerous. They passed without noticing him, their radios crackling softly as they moved toward the stern. Lucas exhaled slowly. He needed to find Rourke. Fast. Slipping through the dimly lit corridors, Lucas kept close to the walls, every step calculated. He passed luxury furnishings, high-end liquor cabinets, designer furniture. Everything about this place screamed money, power, control. Then he heard it, a voice. Deep, calm, dangerous. I don't care how he got away. Just find him. That boat had something valuable, and I want it back. Tonight. Lucas froze. The voice belonged to Rourke. And now, he was close enough to hear every word. Lucas pressed himself against the wall, his breath steady, ears locked onto Rourke's voice. I don't care how he got away. Just find him. That boat had something valuable, and I want it back. Tonight. His gut tightened. Valuable. So whatever was hidden in the Storm Runner wasn't just some minor contraband. It was important. Worth stealing. Worth killing for. Lucas inched forward, keeping to the shadows as he peeked around the edge of the corridor. Rourke stood in the middle of a lavish lounge area, dressed in a black silk shirt, sleeves rolled up, a gold watch gleaming on his wrist. He was built like a man who had never lost a fight. Broad shoulders, cold eyes, and a presence that commanded the room. 2 other men stood near him, one checking a laptop, the other watching the security monitors. Lucas's gaze locked onto the laptop. The screen flickered with a set of coordinates. They were tracking something. He squinted, reading the numbers. It wasn't his boat they were tracking. It was whatever had been inside it. His mind raced. That meant the item had been removed before he got the Storm Runner back. And if Rourke was still looking for it, then... Sir. Lucas's stomach dropped. One of the guards near the monitors had frozen mid-sentence, his eyes fixed on the screen. The Storm Runner was spotted near the docks an hour ago. Rourke's jaw tightened. Where is it now? Gone. We lost the signal. But if Hayes is in the city, we'll find him. Rourke's expression remained unreadable. Then, slowly, he smiled. No, we won't have to. Because he's already here. Lucas's blood turned to ice. Rourke turned his head slightly. Not directly toward Lucas, but close. Too close. Had he been spotted? Lucas's heartbeat slammed against his ribs. He didn't wait to find out. He moved. Fast. Ducking low, he slipped out of the corridor just as Rourke raised his hand. Lock it down. Alarms blared. Lights flashed red. Lucas sprinted, his boots hitting the floor in rapid succession. He could hear footsteps behind him, guards scrambling, voices shouting. Find him. Lucas rounded the corner, nearly colliding with a heavy steel door. He yanked it open, slipping inside just as a gunshot cracked the air. Too close. He slammed the door shut, bolting it behind him. No time to breathe. No time to stop. The room was dark, the faint glow of security panels blinking from the walls. His eyes scanned the space, then froze. A metal case. Small. Black. Unmarked. And locked. His gut twisted. Is that to be it? The thing Rourke was hunting. The thing someone had stashed in his boat. Lucas didn't have time to think. He grabbed the case, shoving it under his arm. Footsteps thundered outside. They were coming, and he had nowhere to run. Lucas's breath came fast and sharp as he pressed his back against the cold steel door. The black case gripped tight in his hands. Outside, the thunder of boots echoed down the corridor. They were closing in. He's in there. A fist slammed against the door, followed by another gunshot. The metal rattled, but it held. Lucas had seconds, maybe less. He turned, scanning the room. No windows. No vents. No easy exits. Just a security terminal, a storage rack, and a bolted-down metal desk. His heart pounded. He had to move. Think. Then his eyes locked onto something, the emergency hatch. A small escape panel on the floor, barely visible under the dim red glow of security lights. A maintenance exit. His way out. Lucas didn't hesitate. He dropped to his knees, shoving the case under his arm as he pried the hatch open. A metal ladder led down into the yacht's underbelly. More pounding on the door. 3 seconds, then breach. No time left. Lucas swung himself down the hatch, pulling the cover shut just as the door behind him exploded inward. The force shook the walls, splinters of wood and metal flying in all directions. Lucas barely managed to land before he heard them storm in. Where the hell is he? Good question. Lucas moved fast, crouching low as he sprinted through the dimly lit service corridor. The space was cramped, humid, lined with exposed pipes that rattled with the yacht's movement. If he got trapped down here, he was dead. The case pressed against his ribs as he ran. His mind raced. He still had no idea what was inside. And right now, that didn't matter. All that mattered was getting out alive. Up ahead, a faint glow spilled from an open grating. Water sounds. Lucas pushed harder, lungs burning. He reached the grating and dropped to his stomach, peering through. The ocean. A direct drop into the water. But the problem? It was a long way down. Behind him, the shouts grew louder. He's in the maintenance deck. Cut him off. Lucas didn't think, didn't hesitate. He pulled his diving knife from his belt and jammed it into the grating's hinges, prying hard. The metal groaned, rust cracking away. Footsteps. Close. Too close. He wrenched the panel free just as a voice shouted from behind. There! Lucas launched himself forward and dropped. Cold air rushed past his face. The case tore from his grip, tumbling through the darkness. Then, impact. The ocean slammed into him like concrete. Freezing, crushing, silent. Lucas fought to stay conscious. The current dragged him down, his ears ringing from the impact. The case, where was the case? He opened his eyes against the sting of salt water, saw it sinking, disappearing into the black. His lungs burned. He had seconds before he either swam or drowned. Above, the yacht's floodlights pierced the water. Shadowed figures leaned over the rail, looking for him, waiting to finish what they started. Lucas had one chance. Go after the case, or go for air. Lucas forced his body to move. The freezing ocean wrapped around him like a vice, pulling him down, its dark currents fighting to drag him deeper. But his eyes were locked on one thing. The case. It twisted as it sank, tumbling through the water, disappearing into the black abyss. Whatever was inside was worth killing for, worth stealing. Lucas knew one thing. If he lost it now, he'd never get another shot. Above, floodlights pierced the waves, illuminating the water like a stage. Shadows moved across the deck. They were watching, hunting. Lucas had seconds to make a choice. His lungs screamed for air. The salt water burned in his throat. Every instinct told him to swim up, to survive. Instead, he kicked downward, straight into the dark. The water grew colder. Pressure tightened around his chest. But the case was still there, sinking fast, just out of reach. Lucas stretched his arm forward, fingers grazing the metal. Then a splash above. Something was coming. Lucas didn't need to look. They had sent someone after him. His grip locked around the handle of the case, just as he heard the first muffled shot. A silenced round. Even underwater, it whipped past him, slicing through the current like a spear. They weren't waiting for him to surface. They were trying to kill him now. Lucas kicked hard, reversing course, the case locked in his grip. The weight of it slowed him, but he fought through it, pushing toward the surface. More shots. 3, 4. A figure dived into the water. Armed. Lucas's chest felt like it would explode. He was running out of time, running out of breath. 5 feet from the surface. 4. A hand grabbed his ankle. Lucas twisted violently, bringing the case up, swinging it like a battering ram. It connected with the diver's head hard. The force stunned them, giving him a fraction of a second. That's all he needed. Lucas burst through the surface. Gasped. Air filled his burning lungs. Above, gunmen were already moving. Lucas saw the storm runner still drifting nearby. His one chance. A bullet ripped through the water inches from his shoulder. He didn't hesitate. Lucas grabbed the case tighter, took a deep breath, then dove again. This time, he wasn't going after anything. He was escaping. Lucas moved like his life depended on it, because it did. The ocean swallowed him whole again, muffling the shouts and gunfire above. His muscles burned, his body screaming for rest, but he kept pushing forward. The storm runner was just ahead. Above, the gunmen had lost him in the dark waters, their floodlights sweeping back and forth. The armed diver wasn't far behind, but Lucas had one advantage. He had done this before. Swim fast. Stay unpredictable. Get to the boat. With the black case still clutched in his grip, he broke the surface again, just behind the storm runner. No time to think. No time to stop. Lucas grabbed the edge of the hull, hoisting himself up, his arms shaking from exhaustion. The second he hit the deck, a shot rang out. Too close. He dove sideways, rolling as a bullet tore into the fiberglass where he had just been. Lucas didn't hesitate. He slammed the throttle forward. The storm runner roared to life, its twin engines kicking up waves as it blasted forward, leaving the yacht and the gunman behind. They fired again. Missed. Then, the yacht's deck exploded with movement. A pursuit boat was being lowered into the water. Lucas gritted his teeth. They're not letting me go that easy. The case thumped against the deck beside him, reminding him why they were chasing him in the first place. Whatever was inside this case, it was worth all of this. Lucas didn't look back. He twisted the wheel, cutting through the dark ocean, pushing the storm runner to its limit. The yacht's pursuit boat hit the water, engines roaring. They were coming. Fast. But Lucas had the home advantage. He angled hard toward the coastline, weaving between the rocky outcrops that most people wouldn't dare approach at high speeds. The pursuit boat followed. Closer. Closer. Then, Lucas made his move. At the last second, he yanked the wheel right, threading through a narrow gap between two jagged rock formations. The storm runner barely squeezed through. The boat behind him wasn't so lucky. Lucas heard the crunch of metal and fiberglass as the pursuit boat clipped the rocks, sending it spinning sideways. They were out. Lucas didn't slow down. The adrenaline still surged in his veins, but he knew, for now, he was safe. The coastline came into view, a secluded beach cove where he could regroup, catch his breath. The black case sat beside him, drenched, battered, but intact. Lucas stared at it. All of this, the stolen boat, the gunman, the chase, the near-death moments, had been because of whatever was inside. His fingers trembled as he reached for the latch. Slowly, he flipped the locks open. The case clicked. Lucas lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in protective foam, was a single hard drive. Small, unremarkable, but Lucas knew better. This wasn't just some ordinary data storage. This was something dangerous, something powerful, something that Rourke and whoever he worked for would kill to get back. Lucas let out a slow breath. Looks like I just became a bigger problem than they expected. The waves crashed against the shore as he set the case down, staring out at the dark horizon. He wasn't done, not by a long shot. This was just the beginning.